everyone. Welcome. Thank you all so much for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started because we have a lot to talk about, and we have to do a grocery store tour, so we don't want to waste any time and keep you guys here until like 9 p.m. Even though that would be my dream, to get locked into Mother's and overnight and just eat everything. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and start. My name is James Marin. I'm a holistic registered dietitian, environmental nutritionist.
And I am Dahlia Marin. I am also a registered dietitian. I dabble a little bit more in functional medicine. So we collaborate and bring kind of our individual styles to our practice. Some of you have heard of us via Instagram or social media. So we are Married to Health, and others have heard of us through Mothers. So you'll be seeing us more often in Mothers. We've partnered with Mothers, and we're going to be offering in-store sessions, grocery store tours, and a lot more exciting things in the future here. So we're excited to kick this off with all of you.
Yeah.
So today our topic is escaping the sugar trap, because it is hard to escape. And sometimes we don't even know when it's kind of engulfing us and all around us. So we're gonna get into the ins and out of where sugar comes from, what foods are sugar, because sometimes you don't even know.
So what is sugar? Is sugar bad? We're going to talk about added sugar, and then we're going to show you case studies, so our actual patients, so you can see, does this work? Do we even know what the heck we're talking about? Because as one gentleman just said, you just heard about the ketogenic diet maybe not too long ago, so it's good. You hear a variety of things, and so we're going to give you research-based clinical studies and evidence-based research.
And so we've both been practicing for about 6 years, and I would say the bulk of our patients have prediabetes, have diabetes. I used to be one of those patients. If you saw me 10 years ago, I was 50 pounds heavier and I was pre-diabetic. So I know how it goes. I know how you get there, and I know how you get out of it. So with my own experience and with my education, we've been happy to guide a lot of patients through that and clients. So we'll get into kind of how we do, but this is just scratching the surface, like I said. So what is sugar, right? There are different kinds of sugar. It comes from all different places. Is it always bad? So we don't want to demonize sugar. We don't want to say, don't eat sugar ever again. Sugar is vital for our body, right? It's our main source for energy. Our brains need it, our muscles need it. It's the fuel for our car. It just depends on what kind of sugar it is, right? There's a whole spectrum that we're going to be getting into of kind of this evolution of what used to be food and what is now highly processed sugar. So we have sugar is a carbohydrate. So we're all familiar with that word, correct? And I would say carbohydrates have kind of gotten a bad rap recently in those last couple decades. We've heard about all these low carb, no carb, crazy crash diets, but our body really does work its best and most efficiently on carbohydrates, and sugar happens to be one of those. But we have these really complex, not hard to digest, but more cumbersome for our body to digest carbohydrates. So those are going to be called polysaccharides. So those are when you have a bundle of starch, you have fiber, and you have glycogen, which is that storable form of sugar in your muscles. So again, not all sugar should be looked at in a negative way.
And keep in mind, this is all coming from food, okay? So this is all coming from food. You can eat complex, and eventually it gets broken down into simple, okay? So big difference as opposed to eating simple and then it stays simple, and eating complex and it being broken down into simple. And with that leads into what, Delia?
So again, like James was saying, so all turns into those simple sugars. They all make their way into our bloodstream. We need a little bit of sugar in there, right? Because that's what keeps us going, but we don't want too much. So when we're starting with those simple carbohydrates, if you can go back, when we're eating foods that come in this form, these really simple forms, the work's been done for us. But when we're eating things that haven't been processed, so if you're looking at starches, fibers, and sugars, those are things that come in a natural form of fruit, right? So when the work hasn't been done for us, we're chewing them up, we're breaking them down, and then in order for them to get to your bloodstream, your stomach has to do the same thing. It's chewing them up, it's breaking them down. And then eventually, it slowly will become these simple ones, rather than, hey body, here's a bunch of simple sugar, figure out what to do with it, your blood sugar's all the way up here now. So when you're having the more complex carbohydrates, you're slowly getting there, and you're letting your body kind of have a chance to catch up.
And now it goes into the blood as we know it as glucose, which is why we take our glucose. If you're have a pre-diabetic or diabetic, you have a glucometer which measures glucose.
have the amount of sugar in your blood. Absolutely. So we are in this age of an abundance of food, right? No longer are we in the times where food is scarce. It's abundant. It's being marketed to us, and it's being, sometimes adulterated. So with sugar, there are nearly 300 different names that they can use to label sugar. And oftentimes, why would they change the name so many times?
What do you guys think?
What do you think?
Marketing.
So why would they do that?
Because you're trying to avoid that word.
Yeah, so we've now learned, okay, I don't want to eat as much sugar, right? So they don't want to just say this has sugar in it. So they're going to give it fancy names like what's panocha and, glucose solids and high fructose corn syrup and tagatose. So they give them these weird names and people think, oh, I don't know, maybe it's a vitamin. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's innocent. So you're getting all these different forms. So, the most common ones you're going to see, if it ends in ose, it's a sugar, right? So you have all these glucose, fructose, lactose, dextrose, maltose, all these different things like that. So those are those processed sugars. If it ends in all, it's a fake sugar. It's artificial sweetener. And we'll talk about what that's going to do to your blood too. Anytime you see syrup or juice or malt or these dextrins and maltodextrins, those are also sugars. So again, the work's been done for you. You're going to have a rapid rise in glucose. And then what's your body going to do? You don't want a bunch of sugar in your blood. You don't want a ton in there. So we need this hormone called insulin. It's this key. Imagine if all the sugar's stuck in here. We really want to go shopping in Mother's, right? We don't want to be stuck in this hot room altogether. We need insulin to open this door for us. So some insulin is good. It has a job. But if we have a high glucose, then we have a high insulin. And usually when you have too much sugar, you're going to make way too much insulin. And then you come crashing down. Who here gets hangry, where you feel hungry, angry sometimes? You have those moments, right? I waited way too long to eat. Or oftentimes I'll see it more in my patients who have high intakes of sugar very often. So they get on this roller coaster, and sometimes it's hard for them to get off. So you start your day, and we'll go through a typical day in a minute with higher sugar. You come crashing down because you made a bunch of insulin, and then you're hangry. You're like, where's my snack? I need a snack right now. I need some crackers.
And guys, and we made this slide purposely overwhelming because it can be. We don't expect you to be the experts and know all these names. The general rule of thumb is if it's not a whole food, you can be sure it's a processed food. So a great example of this is coconut. So now in fancier products, you're seeing something called coconut nectar. Is that a whole food? No, coconut is the whole food. Now you're seeing cane sugar. Is cane sugar a whole food? No, the actual sugar cane is the whole food. Does that make sense? And even this with fruit juices. So you see fruit juice concentrate. Is fruit juice a whole food? No, it's the juice from a whole food. So you see, that's the general rule of thumb, is if you're not seeing a whole food, you can be sure it's a processed sugar. And like I tell like we tell our patients, is pretty much even organic sugar will give you organic diabetes. There's no difference, okay?
So like we said, you have this kind of evolution of where food falls. So it once might have been food, it's been processed over and over and over, and then it turns into a lot of these different things. So again, these are going to affect your body in different ways. So this was a whole food. It keeps you nice and stable on this fun little ride throughout the day. This puts you on that roller coaster.
Right. And so you see that, and that's why we call it a spectrum, guys, is you can get away with apple slices. Great, eat apples. Even our diabetics, we recommend eat apples.
And eat different fruits.
And eat different fruits. Apple sauce, great, you can still do that because you're just blending up an apple. That's great. What about homemade apple nut bread? That can get a little dicey, right? What flour are you using? Are you adding more sugar? Then apple juice. Is there fiber in apple juice?
And who can tell me here, what's your guess? In 1 8-ounce glass of apple juice, how many apples do you think have been squeezed to make that 8-ounce cup?
Wow. 50?
50? Okay. Any other guesses? 3. 3? Those are some juicy apples.
Maybe 15.
So 15. It's usually about 15 apples that it takes to make 1 8-ounce glass of juice. Raise your hand here if you can eat 15 apples in one time, in one sitting. No one? No? So yeah, and that's why you're not full, and then you're just overwhelming your body. Like, here's a bunch of this, deal with it right now. Even though it's 100% natural, it's really not, because 100% natural means you didn't process it. So plants, again, just like the apples, they make sugar for us. So you're getting what you need in a healthy dose. in a healthy way that your body can process it when you're having whole food plants. So the World Health Organization has come up with these kind of a consensus that men and women, adult men and women, should have no more than about 9 teaspoons of sugar per day. And that's really only not to get severely sick, right? Because even 9 teaspoons.
And to clarify, this is
excessive.
added sugar.
And that's processed, so
Processed.
not apples.
So we
Added
recommend
sugar.
9 teaspoons of added sugar a day. That's the maximum.
To just not make you super sick and ill with different diseases. So for children, they recommend no more than 6 teaspoons per day. So they, generally are not going to get sick in their lifetime. An average of today is about 20 teaspoons per adult and child. So I went down and I wanted to really make this real. So I made an average day. So I do work with adults primarily now. However, I did work for a pediatrician for 2 years in Santa Ana, so not too far from here. So I'm very familiar with what school-aged kids are eating. And a lot of kids are not bringing food to school. The school makes it really easy. They really encourage kids to have breakfast and lunch at school. The school actually profits if the kids are eating their food. So they really want these kids to eat food. So I went ahead and I looked at a menu. And this was not, this isn't from a low-income area. This is the Newport Mesa School District's website that I got this off of. So these were just some of the offerings from their menu. So for breakfast, kids have choices. So I picked a couple of the choices. If they picked, some cereal, they also have to meet this certain requirement of ounces of grains. So they have to have 8 ounces of grains per meal. And that is because the study showed that if you have 8 ounces of grains per meal, you're less likely to get cancer. So they looked at that little thing and they said, okay, you have to have 8 ounces of grains. So you get cereal and you have to get graham crackers with your cereal for breakfast. They get juice, and that meal right there, you can see I said how many grams of sugar. So that's 31 grams a teaspoon. That's 8 teaspoons of sugar just for breakfast. So I wonder why these kids are so hyper, right? And where everyone has ADD right now, and we're complaining that kids aren't able to be attentive and have behavioral issues, but they're basically having candy for breakfast. It's just being packaged in different ways. So again, we know that sugar fuels a lot of different things, not only diabetes, but cancer and different things. So, that's what happens when you kind of compartmentalize nutrition recommendations. You look at this one thing, like we're gonna do this one thing, we're gonna give them grains, but we cover them in sugar so they'll actually eat them. And then, it might be causing other problems down the line. So for lunch, this kid went on and they had teriyaki chicken and brown rice. They had a fortune cookie, carrots, and they get light dressing. And I put light in bold. So whenever we're seeing products that say light, we assume they're better, right? It's light, it's gonna make me lighter. Well, light means they've reduced the fat. Fat tastes good, right? So when they've taken out the fat, they still have to have it taste good or no one's gonna eat it. So what do you think they replace the fat with? Sugar, right? So light ranch, light salad dressings have a lot more sugar than regular ones. They also have the option of having chocolate milk. So for lunch, again, 7.5 teaspoons that day. So these kids are definitely on that crazy roller coaster. At dinner, they had some wheat pasta, some pasta sauce. So a lot of people don't realize that even though tomatoes are really sweet, oftentimes they have a lot of sugar added to them. And then maybe a cup of Gatorade. They had some broccoli too, so they got their grains in. 8 teaspoons of sugar. And then these are just some common snacks that a kid might have. So some cheddar bunnies, a yogurt tube, crackers, and pouch of fruit snacks. Another 4.5 teaspoons. So this kid in one day had 28 teaspoons of added processed refined sugar in their diet.
Had this been 28 teaspoons worth of quinoa or fruit, vegetables, and that sugar, completely different. So just want to clarify that.
Does this surprise anybody?
No.
It doesn't surprise you?
Some say yes, some no.
But did you think it was happening kind of so close to home? Like right in Orange County? So yeah, we've seen it, but sometimes we feel like we're removed, right? We feel like, oh, we're more educated in this area, we're more affluent in this area, but it's happening here in our backyard. So this would be their parent then. So their parent, they might have gone to Starbucks, they got breakfast, they got a coffee, they got one sugar packet in there, they were being good. They had some soy milk, a little panini with it. They started their day off with 2.5 teaspoons of sugar. They got around to lunch and they packed their own salad. And in the salad, they had cranberries, they had some light dressing and a diet soda. And then they had some milk chocolate too to just really get in there. So that was 4 teaspoons of sugar. They had the same dinner as their child, but they didn't have Gatorade. They were having diet soda because they were being good. So that's 4 teaspoons of sugar. And then between their snacks, a yogurt, a little bit of ice cream, a couple little rice sticks, and some cereal. That was an added 10 teaspoons. So like we said, the average adult in the United States is having about 20 teaspoons of added sugar each day.
So then we get to why are we telling you this? What does this mean? Why should we avoid this added sugar? Well, we know it's an obesogen, okay? The analogy I like to give is you've had the coca plant, we made cocaine, and then we made crack cocaine. It's very similar to the corn plant, corn syrup, and high fructose corn syrup. The cane sugar plant, cane sugar, and evaporated cane juice. Okay, the list can go on and on. Okay, so as we highly process this, they become obesogens. They put you at risk for diabetes, overeating, neurological disease, which is type 3 diabetes, behavior issues, heart disease, mood and depression, GI issues. As you can see, diabetes is on the rise. It's the top 10 cause of death, okay? We're spending globally, it's getting up to $1 trillion just on diabetes issues and medical issues and the related issues to diabetes. Roughly getting up to almost $1 trillion spent annually worldwide on these health issues related to diabetes. In America, the stats are much worse, just in our country. So we're approaching about 30%, in some more conservative studies, 30% of our population have some form of diabetes. In other studies, they say 50% have some form of diabetes. So that's 1 in 3 or 1 in 2 have some form of diabetes. Of those, 1 in 4 don't know they have diabetes. So a lot of us don't know it.
And of those forms, we have type 2 diabetes,
right,
type 1 diabetes, gestational diabetes when you're pregnant, pre-diabetes. So,
and I'm sorry if I'm going fast. I want to make sure we get into everything, and then we're going to answer your questions on the tour, and we'll get into more questions. I want to show that it's all connected. If you're having gallbladder issues, intestine issues, so digestive issues, whether it's gastritis or reflux or bloating or constipation, if you're having pancreas issues, which means diabetes, that's where insulin comes from, liver issues, so if you have high cholesterol, LDL, you have migraines, you have back pain, I want you to know it's all connected, guys. This intricate system that we formed is our body. And so if your pancreas is in trouble, meaning you have insulin resistance, aka diabetes, you can be sure your gallbladder's in trouble. You can be sure your intestines are in trouble. You can be sure your liver's in trouble. This then gets into what we've been hearing so much about, which is adrenal fatigue or hormone imbalances. We then get into the endocrine system. The pancreas is part of the endocrine system, your body fat, your thyroid, and your ovaries. It's all connected, okay? Yeah. That was a bomb right there, I know, but yeah. So then the next question is, how do we avoid this? What do we do? Well, it's easy. We're just gonna make it really complex on the nutrition facts. What you're gonna do is divide I'm just kidding. Don't look at this. This looks really complex and over the top because it is. We tell our patients, don't look at nutrition facts. They're a waste of your time. Okay, unless you want to do that. Unless you want to count calories, measure portions, do points, use a fancy app, spend thousands of dollars on my fancy literature to help you with this, and you'll be all set, right? It's working so well. No, instead, what we teach our patients is don't look at calories, don't look at the nutrition facts, fat, sugar, anything. What you want to look at are the ingredients. So here are 2 common bars that we see, okay? And the ingredients are very different. You can see one has a lot of processed refined sugar and one does not. So that's where use simple rule of thumbs to say, is this food pre-digested for me, so it's gonna spike my blood sugar, or is my body gonna have to do some work and digest this food and feel really good from it and getting whole food nutrition? Big, big difference. So this is what we recommend, eat whole foods, okay? This is what we recommend to our diabetics, our severe diabetics, our severe patients with neurological issues. We say eat whole foods, fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, beans, peas and lentils, and even grains you can get away with, okay? And ideally, and this is from even the American Heart Association, the World Health Organization, and many, many studies, if you do eat meat, we recommend not too much, and none at all is fine as well, okay? If you do choosing quality, just like you're choosing quality whole foods, you want to choose quality meats as well, like you have here at Mother's Market, okay? Does this work? This is the big question. So, like, we could just be making this all up, right? Who knows? So maybe we're crazy, maybe we just made all this up, okay? Does this work? So this is just a couple of our patients. So patient K, here you'll see, we met with him in, last year in May. His fasting blood sugar was 228. You should be under 100. I'll just go over this real quickly. Cholesterol, you should be under 150 is what we recommend. It's 214. His triglycerides, you should be under 150, 455, okay? A1C, so for those of you that are diabetic, you know what A1C is. A1C, I won't go into it right now, but A1C, you should be under 5.6, 11.8 was his. At the end of what we've done, you know.
What is the HDL?
HDL is a good fat, so it's a high density lipoprotein, that's a healthy cholesterol. His was actually kind of low.
So you want that to be around 60.
Right, so we're still working with him, but as of June of this year, his fasting glucose is now 109, his A1C is 6.3, which puts him in like the pre-diabetes category, and everything else was normal. So he did all this, got off all his medications, and at the same time lost 18 pounds in like 3 months at one point.
But
So-
was he eating all his food out of little containers?
and we made
counting
sure
everything?
he got our $1,000 app and was portion controlling and reading. No, he didn't do any of that.
None of it. It's just really
Here's
putting
a-
quality food in.
Here's a more simpler example. This is someone with pre-diabetes, which we're hearing a lot more of. Our method and our mantra is there's no such thing as pre-diabetes. You either have diabetes or you don't, okay? But we'll go ahead and use pre-diabetes for now. Pre-diabetic, but pretty much roughly, not even a year later, everything's normal and he lost 30 pounds, okay? Another patient D, we'll call her. So came to us, and this was just altered lipids. So cholesterol was really high, triglycerides was high, LDL was off, so everything was bad. But at the end of it, roughly, again, not even a year later, all labs are normal, off all medication, and bonus lost 80 pounds as well.
What is BUN?
What, BUN?
Yeah.
Blood urea nitrogen. That was kind of bad too, but it's all good.
So
I know
that's how your kidneys function and
Yeah.
are processing everything.
And
Because
so-
your kidneys are part of getting rid of stuff too.
And so a lot of our patients are really shy. They don't lend us their pictures except for one, which is one of our favorite patients. So if you do become our patient, let us take pictures of you, okay? But so this is so you know I'm not just making this up. This is our patient Glenda, so she let us use her picture. Glenda was one of our first patients. That was her back in July of 2014. This was her last year even. So she's lost over 200 pounds. Even better than how you look, again, because guys, what we say is there's a big difference between losing weight and losing body fat, okay? You don't want to lose just weight because you can lose muscle and glycogen and other important things. You want to lose body fat. That's what Glenda did. She lost body fat because now she thought she would never run again. She's running and jogging, she's weightlifting, she's doing everything she couldn't. Best of all,
for her to lose 200 pounds?
so this was over about a year and a half, almost 2 years. She's lost over 200 pounds and still losing. So now in 2018, she probably looks better than this. I gotta get an updated picture. But better than that, she reversed her type 2 diabetes. She was on insulin, she was on metformin, she was on statins, she was on all these drugs. If you look at this is a graph of her A1C, so 6.4.
And she made this.
Yeah, this was from her doctor, so we work closely with her doctor. 6.4, her A1C is now 5, roughly almost 5, so it's about 5.1, which is normal, which is she no longer has type 2 diabetes. That is possible. We do this all the time. Okay, so this stigma, this idea, we've been brainwashed to say type 2 diabetes is a lifelong disease. You have to be on medication forever.
Or it runs in my family.
It's not true. It's not true. So that's Glenda. That's how you know we're not making that up. Perfect timing. I talked like a auctioneer, but we got it. I want to take you guys on a grocery store tour now and answer questions because I know there are a lot of questions. But with the limited time, I want to be respectful of all your time. We're going to go on a nice little tour. We're going to go into products. We're going to hit the crackers. We're going to hit the breads. We're going to hit the yogurts. We're going to hit anything even you guys want to hit. And let's do that now. But I'll take any questions right now if you have
any
for us.
comments or questions or experiences with any of this?
If not,
You mentioned about diabetes that you have to take for life. I got pressure, I have to take medication for life, that's what he said. And it's into my gene, into my family.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And for reversing it, the best thing I found was just sleep and be able to sleep, which lower my stress because I'm not
Right.
depleted in the morning. That was the best, not too much the medication.
Right. So yeah,
Absolutely.
and so our analogy for that is pretty much if you have a disease, think of it like a tree or this weed you don't want to grow. The branches are the different diseases. Maybe you have diabetes, then you start to have sleep issues, then you start to have heart disease. They're all branches of the same tree. Instead of focusing on which saw is the best for this branch, which cutter is the best for that branch, let's focus on the roots and we get rid of the roots. If you hit the roots, you're gonna get rid of the whole tree. And we have postcards and our business cards. Feel free, I mean, guys, we don't want to sell you anything. We get tons of patients. There's no shortage of patients. We just want to give you information. So even if you want to email us, connect with our newsletter, follow us on social media, ask us questions, definitely get our cards and our postcards. And then we're going to go ahead and start heading out.
Did we have another question
Oh,
or
yeah.
comment?
Just real quick.
Yeah.
GRYCHRITO, artificial sweetener.
Erythritol? Is that ERY? Erythritol, yeah. Do you want to, I mean, so look.
So with artificial sweeteners, what happens in your body, so anything that ends in OL, all, it's an artificial sweetener. So they can't be digested and raise your blood sugar like glucose, so they're not metabolized in the same way. So you eat something with erythritol, you're not gonna have a big blood sugar spike. But the second that something sweet touches your tongue, your body produces an elevated amount of insulin. And the sweeter it is, which a lot of these Splenda and Sweet and Low, they're very sweet, right? So the sweeter it is, the more insulin you're gonna make. So what happens when you don't have any sugar, but you made all this insulin? You're gonna have low blood sugar, right? So studies have shown that those who consume a lot of artificial sweeteners, drink diet soda throughout the day, they actually tend to gain more weight. They tend to have poor control over their blood sugar because they're kind of all over the place all the time. So really good
And it
question.
messes up your gut health too.
Yeah.
Just that, not good for gut health.
So again, if there's a natural option, go for that natural option.
I have a question. I've
Sure.
been a diabetic for 27 years.
Mhm.
Is it possible, is this just for new patients who just became diabetic?
No.
That they went back to being normal because
So-
I have been diabetic for 27 years.
Absolutely. So
Why
she's
not?
asking, she's been diabetic for 27
Well,
years. Is that something that can be reversed, or is this only for people who just have prediabetes or are new into diabetes? That's a great question. So one of my recent patients has been diabetic for about 20 years, but always had gestational diabetes. So, you know, from having her first pregnancy 40 years ago, had diabetes during pregnancy. She's been on insulin for 15 years. Just changing her diet, she went pretty much whole food, pescatarian, but mainly plant-based. She got off her insulin in 3 months. So, no, not necessarily. Your body has an amazing ability to repair itself. It wants to, if we let it.
And guys,
I'm already vegetarian. I'm a vegetarian.
Mm-hmm.
And have been for about 6 years.
Mhm.
My numbers are still not where they're supposed to
Yeah.
go, and I exercise and we eat well, and so, you know, I'm learning now that I
Absolutely.
can do a lot more, maybe, you know, to leave all those medications.
Yeah,
I'm really happy
absolutely.
about that.
Great, yeah, and definitely
Yeah.
get our contact
And
information.
when people have diabetes number 1, can you reverse it?
That's a little bit harder to
More
do.
common.
So oftentimes when someone has type 1 diabetes, that means that for whatever reason, it usually happens in childhood and it's usually after
Yeah.
they've been very sick. So it kind of is an autoimmune trigger and their immune system attacks their pancreas. So
Yeah.
it renders it kind of unusable. So they're really not producing insulin anymore
in some
and they need
cases,
to.
but it's very, very
It's
difficult.
very
rare.
meticulous. It's,
Yeah.
you know, some studies have shown improvement in insulin output, but not necessarily a cure for it. Getting a transplant of your pancreas, but it's definitely a lot harder. But you can control it a lot better. I've seen a lot of type 1 diabetics who rely on the
Okay.
insulin.
Who's going to join us on the grocery store tour?